So, hello everyone, and welcome to Career Launcher. So, in today's class, we are going to discuss a very important topic, and that is about recently the government has decided to uh, change the base year calculation for the GDP. I'm sure you must be aware. It has been very much in the news. So, we will be discussing in detail about this concept of what is GDP and what is real GDP and nominal GDP, because this will help us get to know the difference between the GDP at current price and GDP at constant price. And these are basic things which are generally asked in the exam also. And recently we have seen the uh, update of the base year. ठीक है, तो इसको इसलिए हम लोग we will be discussing it in today's class. So let us begin. Hannah, redefining growth, India's revised GDP estimates and the new measurement framework. So this was actually very recently in the news. And so let us begin. अगर आप देखोगे इस तरह की आर्टिकल्स आ रही थी काफी, a revision of GDP and its implication with update of base year as 2022-2023. Okay, so what exactly it is? This is what we are going to discuss. So what today we are going to discuss, what is GDP? What is the meaning of GDP base year revision? Why has India changed it? And the reason why India changed it, one of the reason was India IMF, that is International Monetary Fund, had commented something about us, and they gave a poor rating when it comes to the GDP measurement or the calculation of or the estimation of GDP in India. So can you please tell me which organization estimates GDP in India? If you know the answer, I'll be very happy to know. The right answer actually to this question is it is estimated by NSO, National Statistical Office. National Statistical Office under MOSPI, under MOSPI, Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. That is what you should be knowing. Okay. So now let us learn. So this is about the organization that calculates or estimates GDP in India. But let us learn about what is GDP, gross domestic product. So it is total monetary value of all the final goods and services produced within a country's border in a specific period of time. Okay, that is called as GDP. The keyword here is domestic. So we'll be discussing each and everything in detail, because in today's class, we are going to discuss the concept of GDP also, the concept of nominal and real GDP. And then we will tell you what is the idea behind updating the base year. So first of all, we are talking about monetary value. Means there should be a monetary transaction that should be happening. For example, let's take an example. Let's say your mother cooked food for you. Now this food you took and eat. You took, Anna, and like you ate it. Now, sorry. So this food, will this be added into GDP? The answer is no, because you are not paying your mother. Because I believe you will not be paying your mother. Like that's the idea behind this. Anna. But instead of that, let's say your mother and you decides to open a restaurant, or what we call in French as a restaurant. Okay. And the same food, like the person comes, some customer comes X, the customer comes and take the food and they pay, the person pays you. In that case, the same food actually will be considered as part of GDP, because now there is a monetary transaction, and that's why you should be knowing about this. Okay. First. Next is of all final goods and services. I'm sure goods and services, you can differentiate between goods and services. Goods which are tangible. So these are tangible products. Tangible thing. This can be touched. Like this is a car. This is actually a sofa. So this is a goods. And when we are talking about services, so for example, if I'm teaching you, or let's say you are learning from any teacher, this is actually a service. You could go to the doctor and you get the service. So that is what this is actually a sort of a service. Now, it is saying total value of all the final goods and services. It means you have to exclude the intermediate ones. Exclude intermediate goods. Because generally, we do not have a concept of intermediate services. Generally, intermediate term is used in manufacturing of goods. So let us take an example of that. For example, let's say this is a sofa. Okay. Now this is there's a company XYZ, a sofa making company. Okay. Now this is a sofa making company. This manufactures a sofa also and a seat also of a car. But this sofa you actually go and buy at, let's say, rupees 50,000. Now this you go and buy, and this is a final product. Yes, because you are using it finally for your purpose. So this will be added in GDP of India. This is a final product as a sofa. But when the same XYZ company manufactures the seat, this seat is actually bought by Mahindra company. The Mahindra company, let's say, buys it at, let's say, I'm not sure, let's say 80,000 rupees. Okay. Now this is further installed in the car, Mahindra Scorpio car, and it is sold at rupees 20 lakh. Okay. So in this case, this 20 lakh is a final product, and this will be added in the GDP of India. But this one, this 80,000 rupee, which is actually the this XYZ company selling it to Mahindra, this 80,000 will not be added in India's GDP because this is an intermediate goods. And why it will not be added? This is a common sense, because it will lead to double counting. For example, when this Scorpio is being sold at 20 lakh rupees, it already contains the price of this seat. Right? Similarly, when this car is being sold, that it already contains the price of the tire, the price of the headlight, the price of the everything, right? So that is the idea behind this. That is why we do not add intermediate goods or services. We add only final goods to what we call it, to avoid double counting. You can take one more example. For example, when you go to the nearby shop to ask for a teacup, let's say the teacup is being sold at, let's say, 15 rupees per cup. I'm just giving example. So this 15 rupees already includes the price of the sugar the person has added, already includes the price of the gas or the electricity, whatever it was required in making, and many other products, and plus some amount, let's say 3 or 4 rupees per cup would be the earning of the person who is selling it, right? So if I'm adding this and I'm adding the input cost of the sugar, then of course it will be a double counting. So to avoid the double counting, when we calculate GDP, we only calculate the final goods and services, final value, not the intermediate value. I'm sure by this time this is very much crystal clear. Goods and services produced within a country's border. Now this is very important. What is country's border? I've told you, when I'm saying GDP, gross domestic product, so we are highlighting this domestic product, means the economic activity should be happening in the domestic, means it should be happening in India anywhere. For example, even if it is happening in Lakshadweep or Andaman, these are a part of India. So if any economic activity is happening there, that will be considered as part of GDP, that is gross domestic product. Okay, this is what you should be knowing. Now, let me ask you an example. I just wanted to know whether you have understood or not. For example, this is an Australian player, Pat Cummins. He comes to India, plays IPL. So when the person is playing in IPL, he is actually providing service for which the person is paid. So whatever the amount he is being paid, will that be added in India's GDP or not? Yes or no? The answer to this question is yes. Okay. Why? We have nowhere mentioned that it should be a citizen of India. We have just mentioned gross domestic product is total final value of all the final goods. You can see it here, total value of all the final goods and services produced by a citizen of the country or citizen of India. Just the economic activity should be legal, of course, and it should be happening within the country's border. So if a Pat Cummins is coming to India and playing in India, this is actually the economic activities generated in India. So of course it will be added in India's GDP. Okay, that is what you should be knowing about. Now let's talk about another concept. There is one more concept, what we call it as instead of GDP, the word used is gross national product. And in that case, we are removing the term domestic with national. So just you have to, instead of countries border, you have to write produced by Indian nationals. So it means this is a gross national product. It should be produced by Indian citizen. But we are not writing here. It should be within the domestic territory of India, whether in India or abroad. Both. Okay. For example, let's say now here Pat Cummings comes to India. So whatever he'll be doing, that will be added in India's GDP, but not in India's GNP, gross national product, because the Pat Cummings is not an Indian citizen. Okay. Now let's take another example. Let's say this is you or your elder brother. Your elder brother goes to Australia for doing the job. So whatever your elder brother will be doing in Australia, that will not be added in India's GDP, because this is not the domestic territory of India where your brother is doing the job. But if your brother is an Indian citizen, he still remains an Indian citizen. He has not taken Australian citizenship and doing the job in Australia, then that will be added in GNP of India, because he's a national, Indian national, and whatever that person is earning, and that will be added in India's GNP. Okay, so this has to be very crystal clear: gross national product and gross domestic product. Now, one more thing. Okay. So there was another term that was saying it is in a specific period of time. So when we talk about it, generally we talk about the concept of fiscal year. And this is how the GDP is defined. That GDP growth in this quarter was that like this. So first of all, let's say we are right now in fiscal year 2026, 2027. So we'll be writing like this. Fiscal year 2026, 27. Or it will be written like this, FY27, because this is how newspaper writes. So when I'm writing FY27 or FY 2026, 27, it means starting from 1st April 2026 to 31st March 2027. That is the idea behind this. This is what we call it as. This is actually the fiscal year in which we are right now. Now, and I am sure you must be aware, it has quarters also. For example, it starts from April, May, June, then July, August, September, October, November, December, and then January, February, March. So this is 2026. This is 2027, right? So this is Q1, April, May, June, July, August, September, Q2, October, November, December, Q3, and January, February, March, Q4. So when I'm saying FY27, I mean to say fiscal year 2026, 2027. Okay. And this means 2026 will have 3 quarters, Q1, Q2, and Q3. And FY27 will have quarter 4 quarters, 4th quarter. Okay, so this has to be very crystal clear. For example, if someone write FY29, Q4 of FY29. So what is the meaning of this? It means we are talking about fiscal year 2028, 29. So quarter 1, quarter 2, and quarter 3 is here, and quarter 4 will be here, right? So it means we are talking about January, February. Q4 of FY29 means January, February, March of 2029. Okay. So these has to be very crystal clear. For example, if someone says Q3 of FY31, what does this mean? It means FY31 means fiscal year 2030, 31. So Q1, Q2, and Q3 is here, and Q4 is here. So it means April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. So this one is right. So this will be October, November, December of not 31, 2030. Right. This has to be very crystal clear. Q3 is here. So Q3 of FY31 means October, November, December of 2030. So these things has to be very crystal clear, because whenever you read newspaper, you will come across these things. Okay. That is why we are talking about these quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, like that. Okay. So I hope the concept of GDP is crystal clear, and we have discussed about gross national product as well. Now let's talk about nominal versus real GDP. So this is also called as GDP at constant price. and nominal GDP is called as GDP at current price. So let us talk about this in this way. For example, let's say there's a shirt manufacturing company. Okay. Now this shirt manufacturing company is producing. I'm explaining it in this way. For example, this is the number of clothes, number of shirts it produces in 1 year. This is the price. This is GDP contribution, and whatever it will be contributing in the GDP contribution. So I'm writing country means contribution. So let's say in fiscal year 22-23, I'm just giving an example. Okay, this is just an example. Number of shirts produced were 100. The price of each shirt was 500. So it will be, you have to multiply it, and this will be 540 with 50,000 rupees. Next is 23-24. Now the number of shirts were actually increased to 120. The price was 500 rupee. Then is 60,000 rupee. The next fiscal year. Okay. The next fiscal year, actually, it got increased to 150. So it became, again, the price is 500. It became, contribution became 75,000 rupees. Next fiscal year, the number of shirts were 150. The prices got increased to 1,000. And hence, because of which, the contribution was 1.5 lakh. Now, here is an anomaly. Are you able to see? When the number of shirts were increasing, the GDP contribution was increasing. It means, why? Because GDP contribution tells us the production in a year. Right? If there is more contribution to the GDP, it means, yes, the shirt company is producing more. But here, if you see from here to here, the production has not increased. But still, the GDP contribution is increased. Why? Why it has increased? Because of increase in prices. It means this is giving us wrong signal. So if I believe that, okay, the GDP contribution, if I just see this, I will realize, okay, the GDP contribution of this company has increased. It means the production must have increased. But my interpretation is wrong here, because the GDP production was fixed and the prices have got increased. So if we are calculating on the basis of that year's prices, that will be called as GDP at current price. Means whatever is the price of that year, or what we call it as nominal GDP. However, this does not tell us the correct picture. So to know the correct picture, what we do is we call it as real GDP. So we take a base year value, base year, and we calculate the price, use that price for every year. For example, here we can say that this is the base year. And whatever is the price here, so the price was 500, I will keep the price 5, and then everywhere I'll keep the price 500, and then I will check. So if I keep the price 500, this will remain 75,000 rupees. So GDP contribution, real GDP contribution will be 75,000 rupees. It means this will tell me the right picture, actually. Yes, that is the idea behind this. This will tell me the right picture because I have used the base year 500 rupees. So 500 rupees I will be putting everywhere, in all the columns, in all the rows. Why? Because this will tell me if the prices are fixed. This will tell me actually the GDP contribution is real or not, and whether I'm seeing any increase in the GDP or not. Right? So that's why the concept of real GDP, where the prices are fixed, where actually real GDP means prices are fixed. That is what you should be doing. So we call it as GDP at constant price, and it always comes with a base year. It always comes with a base year. So this is GDP at constant price, and this is currently will not tell us the right picture because maybe the GDP might have increased because of inflation, right? And real GDP, we are excluding the impact of inflation. Okay. Now you can see it here. This is GDP nominal. Now, so I'm showing why, because actually whenever the countries GDP are compared, this is by default, this is taken. Okay, you should be knowing. So the richest country is US, the second is China, the third is Germany, now India fourth, and I think there are some news articles now they were saying that perhaps India has gone to sixth position. So please keep on checking it. Okay. Similarly, GDP at purchasing power parity terms, we are having third, and rank one is not US, it is China when it comes to GDP at purchasing power parity. We are not right now discussing what is purchasing power parity, but just have an idea. Sometimes they are asking कि GDP PPP में the richest or the topmost country is China, then US, then India. Now we are talking about revision of base year. It must be related to real GDP, because in nominal GDP there is no concept of base year. That is actually GDP at current price. But this is GDP at constant price. So we have to take a constant price, and that is for that we are having a base year. So we take the price of the base year. So earlier it was 2011-12. Now we have upgraded it to 2022-2023. And this is very important. Why we have upgraded also? That is what we are going to discuss. And a real GDP. So when we are talking about real GDP, we must be talking actually about the base year along with the base year. So you can see it here. Base year is not 2022-2023. Yes. You can read further in detail what are the impacts of GDP. When we actually calculate the GDP, the government gets to know how to calculate, how to come up with a new policy. And that's the important thing. And a National Statistical Office, I've told you, NSO. These are asked in exam. MOSP, Ministry of Statistics Program Implementation, comes up with GDP estimates. Quarterly, I've told you quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4. These are the things you should know. So GDP base year revision 2022-2023. CPI, that is Consumer Price Index. This is to calculate inflation in India. We have Consumer Price Index and Wholesale Price Index. The new GDP base year is 2024, and IIP is Index of Industrial Production. This is used to calculate the production of. Going in that detail of CPI and WPI, because that will be a separate topic, but just have an idea. Both are used to calculate the inflation in India, and this is actually released by National Statistical Office, MOSP, whereas this is released by Office of Economic Advisor, Ministry of Commerce Industry. Okay. And Wholesale Price Index is only for goods, because there is no concept of wholesale services. Services will always be like one thing only, and that is what we call is a retail service. But of course, the goods can be both, I would say, retail as well as wholesale. And you can see CPI released by MOSP and WPI released by Ministry of Commerce and Industry. Now, Index of Industrial Production, this actually tells us how the production in industrial sector is happening. Earlier, the base year was 2011-12. Now, but we have upgraded it to 22-23. Okay. So that is what you should know. So IIP includes mining, manufacturing, electricity. So these three major sectors are how good it is performing. Now the question is, why have we upgraded? So earlier for GDP, the base year was 2011-12, but now we have upgraded because last year there was a report in November. IMF gives India C grade on its GDP calculation and other accounts data. That is the second lowest. So A, B, C, D, India had got C grade by IMF, and that's why it was a cause of worry for us. Okay, that is why it was very much in the news. National accounts data is the same thing, GDP calculation and all related things with that. So one of the things they highlighted, IMF highlighted, was the outdated base year, because we are using the very old base year. And you won't believe, so if you are taking the price of 2011-12 in 24 or 25 in the year, that's not very fair. There are a lot of reasons. For example, in 2011-12, we didn't have much internet also. We didn't have even smartphone penetration too much. But now in the last 10-15 years, we have seen so much. So we have to keep on upgrading that also. The second thing is, whenever we come up with a new base year, it has to be a normal year. Okay, I'm sure it must be written. For example, we cannot take, okay, let's take 2021 as the base year now, because this was a pandemic year, COVID year. And of course, when we keep on calculating it, it will, in the future, the GDP, it will not tell us the right picture. Because during the COVID-19 era, a lot of things, the prices got fluctuated a lot and all, many things. So whenever we take actually a comparatively stable year as the base year. So now the government has decided to choose 22-23 as the base year. Okay, so one of the reason was this, and of course it impacts us. That's why the IMF is a very prominent institution, and there's a very famous question that was asked in the MBA exam, and that's what we are going to discuss. 1944 Bretton Woods Agreement happened. We have taken a class. You can search it. Bretton Woods Career Launcher. You search it, you will get that class. Bretton Woods Conference led to the establishment of IMF, World Bank, and GDP. This got failed. This later on replaced with WTO. So that's why IMF and World Bank together is called as Bretton Woods twins. This is a very famous question of, I think, ZAT they had asked, as far as I remember. In some MBA exam, whether it was an IFT or ZAT, as far as I remember, in ZAT they had asked this question. IMF and World Bank together are called as Bretton Woods twins. Okay, so IMF is headquartered in Washington, D.C. What is its job? The main job is to help countries during balance of payment crisis, or lender of last resort to countries. So main thing is to help countries during balance of payment crisis. Okay. And the managing director is Kristalina Georgieva. First managing director is Dan Katz, and you can read further about it. Okay. Headquarters in Washington, D.C. Okay. So earlier, first managing director was Geeta Gopinathji. Now she has left the post from India. She was from India. Now we are having Dan Katz. Okay, so we are stopping this class here, and I'm giving you homework. World Bank, please tell me who is the president of World Bank? President, Chief Financial Officer, and Managing Director of World Bank. Both are Indian origin people, and headquarter of World Bank. Okay, so we are stopping this class here. Please press the like button, share this video. Please subscribe to our channel. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for